Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. Let's go ahead and open up that Zoom room and let everyone in. I want to welcome you all today. We're going to have a really good show. We have Tim Marsh, or Tim Marsh, as we normally call him. This show is sponsored by dailywithdoc.com. And if somebody referred you to this program, please make sure to get back with them. Also, this program is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure. It is for educational purposes only. Thank you for joining us again. And we have Tim. And a little bit about Tim is that he is a licensed massage therapist, a structural integrationist, body worker, personal trainer, clinical exercise specialist, and movement specialist. He's helped countless individuals. Who's making noise? Countless individuals overcome major injuries in order that they may lead a healthy life once again. So I'm going to go ahead and spotlight Tim and bring him on because I can't wait to hear what he is going to talk about.
Cool.
Hello. Welcome, Tim.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm looking forward to getting this message out.
Awesome. Awesome. So I do have some questions for you. Would you like me to start with the questions?
Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself first? If there's anything.
Well, you pretty much covered a lot of it, but I guess the other thing that wasn't covered is I'm a PTSD and pain trauma specialist. And in 24 years, I've had thousands of people on the table, and I've had a different side of the veil that most medical individuals don't get. And that's what I'm really here to kind of teach that and show people.
Excellent. Excellent. So I'll start with one of the questions then. What did you first begin to notice? When did you first begin to notice the extraordinary fascial system?
Well, the first thing that pops into my head is when I was working at a health club in New Hampshire. I worked with a woman who had schizophrenia, and she was an artist, and she was very close to having her ankle fused because of some ankle pain. And you have to remember, I was just a personal trainer, so I was just starting. And when I put her on the table, and I started to palpate her ankle, I started to notice there was a ring around her ankle. And that's when she kind of looked at me. She sat bolt upright and she goes, "Oh, well, that's where they put the ankle cuff around me when they did shock therapy."
Oh my.
And from that moment on, I realized that fascia or the body holds secrets, that this message needs to get out. But anyway, long story short, I was able to dig those rings out. She didn't need the surgery, and she went on, and she's a successful artist, and she's, doing well. I stay in touch with her every once in a while.
That's awesome. That is so it's profound, because I know when I've been working with you, and you've worked on different areas,
Mhm,
it's muscle stores memories and trauma. And
mhm.
I I just love your work. I do. Okay,
Thank you.
so
I'm blessed.
yes, we're blessed to have you as well. So what is your mission and purpose?
My mission is, because I've been on the fringes of the traditional medical field, whether it's physical therapy, chiropractic, orthopedic surgery, I've, for many years, I've had to protect myself from that tribe, because a long time ago, I was preaching this stuff and nobody really truly understood what fascia was. And me and my, I don't know, unique nature, because I've always been a black sheep of the family, so to speak. I was never supposed to fit in. I was supposed to, like Malcolm Gladwell talks about, I'm an outlier, right? So that was a very difficult time for me to take those hits and then be able to talk to the doctors and take them out to lunch or have a cup of coffee and teach them what I do. And then surprisingly, a lot of them became clients, and then I was able to um, make a difference. But today's talk is about the missing piece of fashion.
Okay. And what is that?
Okay. Um, if this circle represents a cell, and then I have another cell that stacks around it, and another cell that stacks around that, eventually it's going to make a circle, correct?
Yes.
Okay, well, as the human being develops, the one end of the circle becomes the mouth and the other circle becomes the anus, but it becomes a tube. Okay, so everywhere that the circles touch, that's called fascia. So you could say fascia is not chicken skin. It's not something that's going to help us only with, sports movement or rehabilitation. The fascia goes deeper. It's embedded into our cellular tissue. It's embedded on our bones. It's embedded into the muscles. It's woven into our existence of who we are. So when you have that deep embedded nature, a lot of times when you, I don't know, let's say you fall down when you're 4 years old and you dislocate your clavicle, and then you have a steel plate put in there. And all of a sudden, when somebody's 32 years old, they're like, well, why am I having shoulder problems? And then when, they go through the traditional physical therapy or whatever, and it doesn't quite help. That's because, like I said, that fascia is embedded into us. It's embedded into our emotions. It's embedded into our experiences. So then I come along and I start poking around. All of a sudden they cry, and they cry deep, and they cry hard. And all of a sudden they hear a loud pop inside, and now their shoulder just reset itself, but it's been out of place for years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so that's really what I wanted to talk about is, being in the sports training field and the personal training field and yoga and tai chi and martial arts and all that stuff. If somebody is going to these people and they're not getting better, and they go to a massage therapist or somebody who has a Graston tool or like cupping or something like that, the ancient form of gua sha, right?
Right.
That's not going to get down deep into the deeper layers. And a lot of times that's my job. And that's the job of intuitive body workers. But I wanted to kind of talk it like being a fascia intuitive, because the fascia talks. So remember, I said it's embedded into our cells, it's embedded into our muscles, it's embedded into our being. But also, if you look at it, the brain is in a cave, our head, it sees upside down and somehow it flips it back up. But that brain uses the fascia with the proprioceptors of our joint to be able to figure out where it is in space.
Right.
So if I'm going back to that issue with the person that broke their clavicle, if they're sleeping subconsciously protected. So therefore, they're like, okay, well, let me go get a pillow. And then they get a pillow and it doesn't help. Or let me try this or let me try that. It doesn't work. That's because Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and probably everybody knows about it. The issue is in the tissues and it goes deep. And that person will never be able to relax or sleep or whatever. They may have like anxiety because of the vagus nerve that's attached to it that goes into our stomach and becomes our fight or flight response. But then when that gets released finally, the nervous system, the hormonal system, the adrenal system gets let go finally. And therefore, that's the missing piece.
Nice. It's always blows my mind how connected everything is, not just in the body, but the past, present, and the future is all connected
Sure.
in the body. And by future, I mean like when we can access the past and
Mhm.
deal with it and heal our present body, then future is different than if we didn't change those things. Because I know for me,
Mhm.
uh, it helped me a lot, and I have grown a huge amount, and just
Yes,
because
you
of
have.
getting rid of, oh God, that big, heavy trauma from a long, long time ago that just weighed me down
Mhm.
and affected every decision I made, and I didn't even realize it. And then,
Yeah, and to pick up on that, you mentioned what my purpose is. There is a lot of misconceptions about massage therapists, somatic body workers, anybody that works on the fringe. And a lot of times we get more touch points or more touch time with this person than the medical community gets. And what I really want to do with this show is I want people to wake up and I want them to realize that if you look at the Tao Te Ching, that's a famous traditional Chinese medicine book, they say everything's interconnected. Okay, big deal. We know that. But there's no one rock, there's no one dog, there's no one cat. There's always two or more. So when you have an issue out there that everybody has tried to solve, what I found out from my experience, the issue is usually deep and dark and requires the excavation. So I'm kind of very similar to like a paleontologist, right? I don't want to spend time on the superficial level. I want to get to that fossil. So what I do is dig my way into the fascia and to the fossil and pull it out. And in the process, you affect more than just their body. You affect their mind, their emotions, and their spirit too.
Yeah. So, has your journey been challenging or painful in the health field? Did you just go?
Well, I mean, it's been painful, but I wear those scars with badges of honor because what I've been able to do is make lemonade out of lemons. I've been able to learn from my mistakes. One of the reasons where I am in my career is I've had some amazing clients from all over wherever, I've been to a lot of places. And some of them just gave me that carte blanche to be able to say, I know you'll figure it out. And just like a blind squirrel, you're going to find a nut now and then. And I was blessed enough to be able to be a Taurus and tenacious and say, I'm not giving up.
I'm glad you didn't. And you kept moving forward because here we are.
Me too.
So tell us a little bit about your trauma work that you do. I know you've kind of touched on it here and there, but I know that you work with people that have traumatic brain injuries and
Mhm.
work with some women that have been in very highly
Oh,
abusive
yeah.
issues.
Mhm.
And we won't give specifics, of course, but can you talk a little bit about the, how do I want to phrase this? I
The
guess,
dark side.
yeah, the dark side and the steps, because there's a way that you work with people that takes layers. You don't just go down for the core, you go in layers.
Mhm.
You elaborate on that a little bit for me or for us?
Yeah. Um, my history when I was younger, I was traumatized many different ways. Um, and long story short, I've been in a lot of different relationships of being controlled. Okay, but like Bull said from Night Court, I'm doing much better now. So, um, what I learned is the fascia, the muscles, and the emotions and the person leave clues. So, what I like to view myself as, and what I love to be able to teach other therapists who ask, right? How can you play Sherlock Holmes? How can you look at something and say, okay, well, if PT or somebody says, okay, this shoulder is connected to that hip, the opposite hip. Okay, well, what else is going on? What other things are going on? So a lot of times when you see me working with people, including yourself, Ruth Ellen, what I do is I create a blueprint. But more importantly, and this is what I've been waiting to say, the fascia is also an information highway. And there are people out there who have a gift. You can call us fascial whisperers or whatever, right? But we're able to read that highway. And the reason we're able to read that highway is because a lot of us were black sheeps anyway, and we were never understood. And, being a black sheep and being the weird one that says, oh, Tim's a great guy, good guy, but man, I just can't describe him, you know? But that's a blessing because Steve Martin said, be so good you can't be described. So I read that a long time ago and I said, all right, let's rock this. This is my passion. The day that I was in the River Valley Health Club, I had 5 cancellations in one day. It was a rainy day. And I put on my laptop and I saw this little 83-year-old woman dropping elbows with people in their underwear. And I was like, I'm going to do that for the rest of my life. And that was Ida Raw. And I just took it. I picked it up. I learned different techniques. It's all intuitive. I believe I was meant to do this, but I kept notebooks, and I was very, very meticulous with my notebooks, and I kept notes and I studied them and I said, how do I be better? And how do I be better? And then I read a book called The Talent Code that said if you do something 10,000 times, you become very good. Well, I've done 10,000 times a lot in my career, and I've been blessed. And the one thing that nobody really talks about is the spirituality of fascia. You know,
Yeah.
so if you're a Reiki master, or you're a somatic body person, or you're a Feldenkrais or Alexander technique, or all these other ones, that's what you tap into. And if you don't tap into it, you're missing out on that piece that could help that person find peace.
Right. And you do.
So, I mean, I know it's deep, but that's what I wanted to get out. That all the people out there who are body workers or healers, keep doing what you do, but don't look at the fascia from a textbook. Look at it from your heart textbook.
Yeah, it definitely needs to come from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, when you're working with people, what is the moment when you're with them that leads you to awakening their body in the healing way?
Well, it's not me awakening them.
Mhm.
It's me waking up their awareness that was forgotten. I mean, the veil or the rabbit hole can go as deep as you want to go. And I've spent years studying Buddhism, Hinduism, and Kabbalism, and all this stuff, right?
Mhm.
It's all kind of the same thing,
Right.
So I'm not saying that the fascia is something that is supernatural, but we are supernatural. We are spiritual beings having human experiences. We are not humans having spiritual experiences.
Right. It's very true. So, would you like to tell us a little bit more about like some of the, I know that you've worked with a young lady who has I think she has a brain injury, but I'm not 100% sure. And I don't want to say her name. Um,
Oh, you talking about the traumatic brain injuries?
mhm.
Yeah, that that was on my radar a long time ago when I was a personal trainer and I started working with people at the RVC that had strokes. And I was tinkering, you know what I mean? I was just saying, what if this and what if that? But we were still trying to train the body the traditional way.
Right.
Um, then that kind of followed me throughout my years. And then right during COVID, the universe, God, whatever you want to call, dropped this young individual into our lap who was skateboarding, 24-year-old man. He was skateboarding. He was drunk. He fell, cracked open his head, busted it open, affected his corpus callosum. And he, long story short, he came to us when he could move his upper body, but he couldn't move his lower body. And that's when my awareness went sky high, because I realized that when you have somebody that has a traumatic brain injury, the minute the trauma happens, their body goes back to zero. And what I do is every part of their body I map out, whether it's the SCM, whether it's the pec minor, I bring these parts of the body back up by bringing them pain to wake up the brain. So, that's, and plus I'm surrounded by a wonderful support staff that, allows me to do this kind of stuff. And together, it's not me, it's we. Together, we help traumatic brain injury. But the young girl that you're talking about, that's a whole different story. She's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful girl. And you can get on my Facebook page, Golden Dragon Healing, and you can find out who it is. You can see all the beautiful work. But she is an angel. She's a wonderful angel, and her parents and everybody involved are just fantastic.
Yeah, she's really sweet. I watched the videos not that long ago. It's beautiful watching her and you
Yeah.
and her family.
And I was scared. I was scared during COVID. I told God or the universe, I'm like, I don't want to do this. This freaks me out. And what I found out through my uncomfortable breaking through the comfort zone was a whole different passion. And now we have more traumatic brain injuries coming into us. And I couldn't be more excited, because now it's just not me. We have therapists. We're all doing it. We've got 6 therapists and 1 chiropractor. And I'll tell you what, man, we're a dynamic group.
Yes, it's amazing, the growth and the connection
Yeah,
between the people you work with, because it's not just, it's a family.
it is. It's like Cheers. It's the Cheers atmosphere that I always wanted.
Yeah, it's really good. So I do have a question. It's AJ is curious. Do you have any thoughts on how one might deal with, I think it's supposed to be bipolar, depression, anxiety, etc.?
Well, that's a big spectrum. So what are you asking me? Bipolar,
Okay,
anxiety? Like,
I'm going to bring AJ on and he can ask you himself.
okay,
Well, it actually is all of the above. There's a
okay.
person that I'm assisting someone else to work with who's dealing with uh, diagnosed with bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, and OCD, struggling with mental health. And I was just wondering if you had another modality that might assist. But obviously we come from a nutritional standpoint, and I can only support her so much.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if you had some thoughts that might be helpful. And then
Well,
secondly,
yeah, go
how do
ahead.
you work with people remotely?
To answer your first question, um, this person, do you know what they look like?
I've never met the person. I've got a description in my chat. I mean, if that's helpful.
Okay. Well, what I'm asking, are they like this? Are they like this? And if they are, now we're going back to what I did the last talk, which is the HPA, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And if I'm bipolar, right, I have a chemical imbalance, and my body's trying to create the balance. But then if I'm on medication, you know, what I did a long time ago is when I studied at Penn State and I studied abnormal psychology, I worked at a group home for the mentally disabled. And what I noticed is, remember, I was in my infancy. So I started showing them yoga. And what the people in the place started to notice is that the medication levels went down. And I noticed one woman in particular who was schizophrenic and she was off the rails. Right after a yoga session, she was calm. So a lot of times, because they have this label, you know, they're given this label, and that becomes their gospel. And a lot of times when I work with people with bipolar, schizophrenia, multi-concussions, all kinds of stuff, right? First thing you got to do is get their body open, because the body is the chemistry factory of this. So if their shoulders are up and they're locked like this, then we've got to get them to open up. We've got to get their lymphatic system to open up. We have to get their SCM, which, by the way, is the psoas of the neck. So we have to get that up. And the psoas is in our stomach, and that's our fight or flight response. So maybe people watching this are like, wow, he's freaking crazy because he's calling this another psoas. But actually, it does the same thing. So when I'm working with people who have these types of things, when I get in there and dig out this muscle, they start to take a deeper breath. They start to understand things differently. They're not so jacked up. So my advice to you would be, have that person get in touch with someone like me or all the other weird people that are on the fringes, right? and start to think outside the box and start to say, okay, well, you know, if there's somebody in Chicago that basically is saying, okay, well, I'm a structural integrationist or I'm a body worker. Remember, they have to dig that body out. You have to excavate that body. That's the one thing. When you start talking deep tissue, forget the word deep. Just call it excavation. Because you're going down, you're spelunking, you're going into that cave and going deep and going, wow, what can I find? And chances are that fascia is locked. Now, if they want to do a virtual session with me where I can analyze them and look at them, and here's your second question. During COVID, we were all handcuffed, right? We couldn't talk to each other. So during COVID, I started to realize that I can read people through the screen and I can read people through wherever, right? But that's another part of the game is, you know, looking at it and saying, okay, what other modalities can we come up with? What can we do? Could you take that person that has bipolar? Can you put them into a boxing class? Can you have them beat the crap out of a boxing bag to get their dopamine, serotonin levels, and GABA levels? Or can you just deplete them so then they're wiped out and maybe you can start to revamp it? Maybe then the supplemental supplements and the food can help. Remember, the issue is, I believe, a three-part process. You have the body, you have the mind, and you have the spirit. So if you're working at somebody and the food's not working, it's usually because it's not what they're eating, it's eating them. Does this help? I could probably say it a different way, but
It does help, I guess. What if it seems to me that a lot of
Mhm.
your work involves touch, so I'm
Mhm.
kind of wondering if someone is in New Zealand and they reach out to you, it doesn't appear to me that you can touch them. So
Oh,
I'm
okay,
kind
I
of
see the question.
wondering
What
how
I do is, go ahead, finish your question. I'm sorry.
how it appears that you are very effective when you touch someone.
Mhm.
Just wondering how are you going to help them remotely?
What I do is I read their body and I get them tools. So I get them a myo ball, I get them a psoas ball, I get them a trigger gun. And what I do is I read their body and I say, okay, let's go after this and let's do this. And I guide them through it. And it's been very, when I did it in COVID, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work because remember, I'm used to getting feedback.
Mhm.
And there was no feedback. But when I started to do it and I do virtual, I do it that way. I guide them through the process of sticking a mile ball right here and getting that spot and walk them through it, or sticking in their glute or their hamstring. Or uh, I'm just, a lot of times, I'm just the witness that wasn't present when they were traumatized.
How do they reach you?
I'm sure there's contact information, but basically it's rootedsomatic.com or goldendragonhealing.com, or you can look up our webpage, the Vagara webpage I showed you, I
I'll
told you
post it.
about.
I'll post it, but
Yeah.
some people want to hear it.
Well, if they want to hear it, then one way or another, between the people on this screen, they'll get a hold of
Thank you, Tim.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, AJ. And if anybody has a question, please raise your hand and we can have Tim answer the question as long as it is not a medical question. If it has to do with muscles and fascia and all of those other things, those are okay. And if you just have a question. So that's so when you're working with somebody, just to piggyback off of AJ,
Mhm.
and they are having the myoball in their shoulder, and I know that that psoas muscle, it's the side right on my left side, in the neck. We've worked on that. I don't know how many
Mhm.
times, and stuff
Yeah,
keeps coming.
lots.
So when you're working with somebody and you're on the computer and working with them, then when
Mhm.
things come up, you can still do what you do, like unpacking it or I always love when you're working on me, like the last not this past time, but the time before. And you did something in my on the side of my body.
Mhm.
It felt like I had something crawl across my inside my body across my stomach. And you could
Oh,
literally
I remember that.
see
Yeah, yeah. You,
you
you
could
were freaked
literally
out by
see
that.
it relax and
Yep.
whatever it was doing. And it was the weirdest thing. I mean, it was like, I don't want to say it was like being pregnant and feeling the baby move because it was so unexpected. I guess maybe the
Mhm.
first time you really feel a baby move is that kind of
Mhm.
sensation. But so you would just, talk them through what the emotions are that's coming up and
Of
allowing them
course.
space
Of
like,
course. It's not it's not a sterile environment.
oh no,
Like they
this is,
know they know that I'm gunning for that area.
mhm,
They know that I'm going to go after it. But,
right.
you know, it's tough. It's challenging. You can do it. It's just going to take that person a lot of fortitude to be able to do it a lot on their own.
Yeah, because I know,
Mhm.
yeah, I know. Oh, I've even made up curse words. Um, right. So AJ brought up a, um, nutrition. And
Yeah.
I know that you have tried several of the longevity product lines.
Mhm.
And so when you're working with people, and which ones did you like for yourself? Let's go start there. Like, because I know we had some really good ones.
Well, I mean, the one that I use a lot when I'm stressed and I know my gut is churning and twisting because I'm absorbing whatever I'm absorbing. The one that I love the most is I-26. You guys know more about that product than I do. You can probably do it a lot more justice. And then the other one that I use just happens to be right here. It's called the
Microbiome.
microbiome. This stuff is super, super powerful. But, and then, a couple of different drops and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But,
Okay.
it's what works for the individual. The last thing I want to do is I don't want to be a used car salesman, right?
Oh no, I'm just asking your
No, but I
person.
mean, like if somebody asks about nutrition, then I may bring up a certain supplement and stuff like that. But
Okay. I know that you I know how you are. I
yeah,
wanted to know because I know that about you. But a lot of people have asked like different things like the hypothalamus support for helping calm down the body, and because you tried that yourself.
yeah, the adrenal support is amazing.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And I know that it really helps with calming the body down, supporting that system.
Mhm.
And I have found it very beneficial after the session with you. All right. Um, so Gemma, I don't know where, I'm thinking she's in YouTube. Um, had a broken ankle years ago, but I now have issues with my right side of the body. How to tackle now so it won't kill me later. Oh, Gemma. So
So what ankle did she mess up?
yeah,
The left?
I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I haven't been checking the message board. So AJ, okay. I'm looking at the screen, AJ. I thought you were talking. Gemma, if you could write which ankle you broke, that would be very helpful. Hey, Rebecca Dukes. Nice that you're watching out there on YouTube. And I also want to give a shout out to my sister Robin, who is on here. I'm glad you made it. We were having a good conversation earlier today. It was her right ankle, and
Is
it's
she having problems on her left side?
yes, yes,
Okay. Um, what was her name? Jenna?
Gemma, Gemma.
Gemma. And
Yeah.
with an M? Okay. Well, when you look at a house, okay? If I go to your house and I take every 2x4 on the left side, right? And I cut it by 1 inch, the whole house is going to lean. So if she has an ankle issue, what's happening is the body is bracing that ankle and not allowing the movement. So everything's crashing down. And when it crashes down, this is what the industry needs to understand. They say that's the short leg. But what's going to happen is the body's going to say, okay, well, what am I going to do? I have to offload it this way. So what's going to happen is my body's going to crash down this way, but then something else is going to happen and tip the scale the other way. So it sounds to me that the ankle's locked, frozen. She could have a calcaneal issue. It could be a subtalar issue. It could be a calf issue. She probably has super, super tight calves and she can't stretch it. That's because you can't stretch an adhesion. You have to dig it out.
Mm.
And that's what I want people to know is if you're a PT, if you're a chiro, or you're a professional and you're trying to stretch adhesions, it's not going to help. What you have to do is dig the body out, then stretch it, then teach it.
Thank you. And Rebecca says, where is it? She loves those weird on the fringe people.
Why be normal? It's boring.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So AJ has a question and then Albert. So AJ, go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, just real quick, why might the adrenal support be helpful?
Well, there's a lot of us walking around in stress and we're not really recognizing it because we've gotten used to suffering. So, if you take the famous story about the German Shepherd in the room, and the one scientist takes the German Shepherd and puts it into a room with an electrified floor. Half of the floor is electrified, half of it isn't. The dog goes to the one side, gets shocked, and falls asleep. Next day, the scientist flips the order. The dog goes to the other side. But here's the kicker. Over the course of the month, the dog gets used to the original shock and learns how to sleep with the shock. That's called learned helplessness behavior. So if I'm in an environment, let's say I'm in an office and I've got a boss that's just my pain in the ass, right? Just doesn't want to listen to what I have to say. That means every single time I go up to that person, subconscious, I'm going to go, uh-oh, I'm going to get beheaded. Uh-oh, something's going to happen, right? And then we get locked into that position. And then we're sitting there, we may be on a vacation. Hell, we can even meet the Dalai Lama himself and go, oh, wow, but we can't let go. So what I like about that is, for me especially, because when I come home and I'm jacked up because I'm supposed to absorb this energy, Carolyn Mays, MYSS, she's another famous therapist and she's a great spiritual teacher. One of the biggest misconceptions is us as healers, therapists, whatever, we're not supposed to absorb, but actually we are. That's why we were traumatized when we were younger. We were traumatized and conditioned to be able to go into these dark places and absorb those energies. And because of who we are and what we do, we have to set ourselves on fire every day. And then we have to take a fire extinguisher and put ourselves out. So a lot of times when I feel like there's days where I'm the flame and everybody's the moth coming around, I take that and it helps me decompress.
Oh man. Well, I hope you enjoy your work.
I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it.
I wouldn't want to be set on fire.
Uh,
I'm just joking, buddy.
Thank you, AJ. And Albert.
Hi there, Tim. How are you doing?
hey, Albert.
Tim, my question is, if somebody has a slap tear in their shoulder, how would you be able to help that, and how would you go about it then?
That's a real interesting thing. Okay, so one of the things is when people come to me, I'm either going to know within 2 to 3 sessions whether or not they need surgery. Okay, now I'm going to say something that's going to be a blanket statement, and these are my experiences
Okay.
over a wide career, okay? But if you have a labral tear, if you have a rotator cuff tear, if you have a slap tear, that's going to be very difficult to fix unless you get the right range of motion. Okay, so a slap tear, basically, you can deal with, provided it's not too bad,
Okay.
And the difference is, everybody that's ever come to me, and that's a lot of people, if they have a rotator cuff tear or they have a labral tear, what I try to get them to understand is you have a progressive mistake inside. So one way or another, you're going to rob Peter to pay Paul. So if this is compromised, the hip on the opposite side is going to be compromised or could be compromised. The vertebrae on this side could be compromised by this slap tear or rotator cuff or labral tear. So I usually have never had a lot of success with people with those tears. And the reason is because they've already been through everybody else before they get to me. So
Okay.
usually my role is to teach them the science, show them why, and then help guide them the best way I can. I have a lot of clients who have tears, but we're working around them. But they know it's only a Band-Aid. It's only going to be a matter of time. It's no different than if somebody says, I've got a, a cavity, right? What are you going to do?
Okay.
You got to go in there and dig it out. So that's why, unless somebody can come up and tell me, okay, I've had this many successes, whether it's infrared therapy or different types of therapies, the people who've come to me have never been helped, and they need the surgery. And that's where the cooperation has to happen. You know what I mean? Like, we talk to the PTs, we talk to the orthopedics, we basically set up the surgery. So people, before they go into surgery, they come to us, we open up the area, and the surgeon just goes, wow, that was really easy. And that's going to be successful long term because there's not a lot of scar tissue.
Okay. Okay. And if it's left long term, does it, with the related pains and areas that you spoke about now, does it become aggravated to the point where it starts causing problems in those places?
Oh yeah, one of the things about the slap tear is you have what's called the supraspinatus muscle that sits on top of the shoulder, and then you got the infraspinatus, which is just underneath that muscle. If I have a breach in my shoulder, that's eventually going to find its way into my neck because my body's going to brace it up. It's going to take this side and pull it down. Now, what's happening? Remember I told you about the house and how the house slides, right? It's out of balance.
Yes.
What's this vertebrae do? It's going to shift to the black hole, right? And then everything's going to work twice as hard to counterbalance that. So
Okay.
that's that when Ruth Ellen asks, like, what do I do? I'm always looking at those compensations. I'm looking at the whole entire body, not just this region. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of
Yeah.
sense.
So a lot of times when you have people have spondylosis, what's the other one? You have the different degenerative joint issues and stuff like that. A lot of times it's the brain trying to counteract the original cause that could have happened 12 years ago. But because this structural issue never got fixed,
Got
your
a
body's going to
tendency,
find workaround, and you're going to wind up robbing Peter to pay Paul. And usually what it means is wherever this one compensates, that's going to be worse than that one.
and obviously the time period can be whatever, and at some point it's going to give in to a heck of a lot of pain. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people who come to us, I mean, they've got spondylolisthesis where the whole vertebrae shifts forward or the whole vertebrae shifts backwards. And a lot of that is due to different compensations. But what I've been able to find out over the years, a lot of it is people who've been in car accidents that they've had whiplash, but they've never quite been cleared. And the say, okay, well, you're free. Then all of a sudden they lose the vertebrae, they lose that curve. And then what happens is that curve flattens out. And then the other thing is the number one thing that happens, the jaw slides forward. So now you have TMJ issues.
Oh wow.
And then, okay, so I mean, this is what I mean. This is, when I say set myself on fire, I mean I have ADD. I've been able to master it, and anybody that has ADD, we're gifted because we can hyper focus for 8 hours, where the rest of us are like, "Oh my God, I can't do this," right? Well, when we hyper focus, we can think outside the box. So a lot of times, my passion is to be able to figure this crap out, figure this out, and also invite the other therapists on board and say, hey, I know you have this client. They like working with me. They like working with you. Can you and I work together to help them instead of being in our little silos and going, okay, well, you do your thing and I do my thing.
Oh, good. No, that's tops. Tim,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Really appreciate it. Right. Thank you. It's Keely's also waiting to ask a question. So
Okay.
thanks a lot.
Thank you, Albert.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. All right, Keely, and Tim, you won't be able to see Keely because only the co-hosts can have their cameras on. So if you can unmute yourself, please send you a request again, Keely. Here you go.
Yeah, hello. Got a couple questions for you, and then a few comments. If you were making a recommendation for somebody that's obviously, I'm in Ohio or whatever, and I have a couple clients based on what you were talking about that I'd like to make a referral to, do you have a particular criteria that you use for somebody that does what you do that would be in the Ohio area around Cleveland?
Oh, Tim, you're muted. Let me unmute you. Can you unmute yourself? Tim?
I didn't even hit anything.
I know it happens sometimes. I'm sorry.
Okay. Anyway, a lot of times when we have people who come from Ohio and Wisconsin and stuff like that, right? But if they wind up talking to me, what my staff, what we do is we try to call the areas, and I usually call them because I'm testing them to see whether or not they can actually like do what I need them to do, what the people need them to do. But traditionally, that usually doesn't work. You know, it's sad, but it usually doesn't work.
Okay, I hear you. In reference to some of the modalities and stuff, you've integrated a lot of different disciplines into one. And you talked a little bit about the transference of the energy that sort of happens in a lot of different fields.
Sure.
I happen to be a graduate of Gestalt Institute. I'm wondering if you ever have heard of Jim Kepner, where he did the Gestalt body process and psychotherapy. It's a wonderful process. It takes about 18 months to go through, but it definitely lights the world on fire. That's one. The second one is that it also seems like you've done a little bit of an emotional integration as well. So you're
Every
taking
session's an emotional, yeah.
Yeah, so that sort of comes off of like Louise Hay's work years ago, where she basically talked about what the body manifests, what the mind can't handle, and or
Sure.
what the mind isn't able to deal with. So my hat off to you in reference to those modalities. The other question that I had, I was trying to write as fast as you were talking. If you were going to guide somebody through a self-assessment as to whether or not they would want your services, what would you have to say to them? What would you have them look for in themselves that would bring them to you?
Well, a lot of them have been through different opportunities. You know, they've tried this and they've tried that and they've tried this and they've tried that. A lot of people, when the universe wants them to come to me, it's usually a referral base from one of their friends or somebody that's connected. But what I tell people is if you're on the fence and you want to come to me or you want to go to another therapist that's, I don't know, two counties down from where you are. Or maybe somebody's out there and they're on the fence and they're like, okay, I want to try this. Wait a couple days. Keep asking the question and see what this says. Not this, this. See what your heart said. See what your intuitive self said. You know, it's challenging because as much our industry is amazing, but one thing that really woke me up to whatever gifts I have is when I worked in Boston and I lived there for a while. A lot of the people in Boston had me call other people in Boston and say, hey, can you work this? And I reached out. And eventually, they said, nobody can do this. So I'm not saying they're not out there, but I'm just telling you that most likely those people, if they're like me, they're not advertising. They're sitting in their cave. They're rocking and rolling, healing people, but they're not going to come out in the public because it's scary.
So what I hear you say is there's few and far between. And do
Yeah.
the majority of your clients come through recommendation then?
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, it's pretty crazy where they come from, how they do it. We do a lot of intake. One of the things that I have them do is they take a video of them walking back and forth for 30 minutes so I can analyze their gait and analyze their movements. And I can see those subtle things like Neo saw stuff in the Matrix. I can see those types of things. And then what I do is take that information and I meditate on it before that day. And I get a lot of intuitive hits on how to help them.
Is that process outlined on your website at all, so that if somebody wanted to do an intake, do they do it via a phone call or they do it via a sign up on your website?
Usually what they do is they reach out to us, Rooted Somatics. They reach out to different therapists, and we ask them questions they've probably never really been asked. But the other thing is the staff that we have, or the independent contractors, they're all intuitive too. So they've learned from me how to ask the questions. They've learned how to, decipher these types of things. And, my business partner, Melissa Wellington, she's good at asking those questions because she's been doing it for a while.
Gotcha. Just one last question. That is, what would you say I know I looked at the list of, all the different things that you work on. I noticed that cancer was not there. Is there a particular reason why?
I've worked with cancer. I just don't put it out there because a lot of times when you, like for instance, if you do manual lymphatic draining, right? That's a light touch and you can open up the lymphatic ducts and help cleanse and stuff like that, right?
Understood.
What I've found over the years is my approach doesn't work well with cancer because it's aggressive, and cancer is aggressive in its nature. And I know what my gifts are, and I'm here to do what I do. So that's the one thing that I left out. And that's the one thing that I've never really had success with.
Okay. What would you say would be your top 5 what do you call it, health challenges that people actually would come to you for?
Well, first run off the bat, occipital neuralgia. Second one is trigeminal neuralgia. Third one is grade 3 spondylolisthesis. Another one would probably be plantar fasciitis. And then the last one would be Morton's neuroma.
Okay. Well, you've given me a lot to think about, and I might have a few recommendations for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, dear.
Thank you, Keely. That's awesome. Bring myself back with you. All right. That was really good. And then, of course, we don't want to leave out the trauma that you help people overcome or get through, I should say. Thank you so much, Tim.
No problem. It was a blast. It was fun.
And we're at the top of the hour. So is there any last thing you would like to say before I start to close out the show?
Yeah. Anybody that's out there that has tried everything known to man, a lot of times what they're afraid of. So if I'm working with a person who was assaulted, let's just say, right? And they were assaulted by a male. A lot of times I come across people who are assaulted, women who were assaulted by men who love female therapists. But a lot of times when I'm brought in, because I'm a male and I'm compassionate, I work with them and dig them out, and a lot of them move on because they're going through what they're really afraid of. So I would tell people out there, what you're afraid of is usually the one that's going to be the freedom mechanism. So if you don't like pain, but you love a lot of Swedish massage and a lot of frou-frou stuff, sometimes you have to crack some eggs to make a cake. And just think about going into that darkness. Think about going into that area that you're afraid of. And remember, you don't die by the snake bite. You die by the poison that it put inside you.
True. I love that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being a guest on the show, and I can't wait to see what you may talk about the next time. I would look forward to planning that with you.
I look forward to it also.
Excellent. So if I could get my co-host on, we will close out the show, introducing them. And if somebody referred you to this program, please get back with the person who referred you, as they will be your main contact for getting what you need and getting information. Also, this program was sponsored by dailywithdoc.com. And we also have a call team available 24/7, thanks to Albert. If you would like to talk to a certified holistic health coach, if you have more questions, then we can get the information from Tim, or you can contact him on the websites, which I believe we posted earlier, and hopefully somebody will also post them on YouTube and Rumble. And our call team number is 855-949-3377. And so we have Sherry, who is part of our tech crew, who helps get the stream out to the different platforms and helps post in the chat. Also, we have Phyllis, who is here, and she is posting in the chat and on all the platforms. And thank you for disclaiming everything and all that. I'm so grateful for you. And she is an amazing woman and a good, she's just a kind soul. Thank you. And then Albert, we have Albert from South Africa, who's here with us doing security, letting people in. And if your name comes in, he changes it, so we know a couple of people come in as different things, and we make it their names. So hi, Jane, we love you so much. And so we're grateful for Albert. And then there is Rod, who is also out there posting on the different platforms and keeping an eye on things. So thank you so much for that. We appreciate you as well. And then AJ, who is our digital marketing director, and he makes sure that we get posted out on I don't even know how many platforms. I'm not even going to try and guess, and I'm definitely not going to list them. There's so many. So thank you so much, AJ. My name is Ruth Ellen Sanchez. I'm the executive production manager of Daily with Doc and Becca, and I am so grateful that you all joined us today. And we look forward to seeing you next week. And we may be having a replay tomorrow, but we will definitely have something for you to watch. I'm going to try and get a guest tonight. Our guest had to switch to next week. So, that's what happens when it's live, right? Thank you so much for joining us. Have a beautiful day. And remember, it's very important, be kind. You have no idea what somebody else is going through. They may be all smiles on the outside and looking fine. Inside, they could be crying and brokenhearted. So just be kind. Have a beautiful day, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.
Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics, guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach.